Sir, please don't leave. Just give me 1 minute. I know you have every reason to walk away, but please don't leave like this.
You ran after me when everyone else stayed silent.
Because what happened to you was wrong, sir.
Thank you for reminding me that kindness still exists.
I'm so sorry. I should have stopped
It's never
it.
too late to do the right thing.
I couldn't let you leave thinking nobody cared.
You don't have to apologize. You gave me something far more valuable than business.
What is that, sir?
Hope.
I don't deserve your forgiveness.
Learn from this moment. That's enough.
There's still goodness in this world.
Does anyone in this hotel speak Chinese? Natalie Brooks's voice cracked across the marble hallway. No one answered. She stood outside the private boardroom of the Langford Grand Hotel in downtown Chicago, one hand gripping her phone, the other pressed against her chest like she was trying to hold her heartbeat in place. Behind the heavy double doors, a billion-dollar hotel acquisition was collapsing minute by minute. Inside that room sat Vic Chen, a 62-year-old Chinese investor, whose firm had spent 8 months studying the deal. His team had flown in from Shanghai. Lawyers had billed thousands of hours. The hotel ownership group had already prepared the announcement, and now Victor Chen was packing his documents into a black leather briefcase. Natalie moved fast. She called the first translator on her list, no answer. The second, voicemail. The third, out of town. Her heels struck the marble harder and harder. Click, click, click. Each step sounded like a countdown. Does anyone speak Chinese? She shouted again. Anyone? A bellhop froze near the elevator. A front desk clerk looked down at her screen. 2 junior managers exchanged a glance, then looked away. Nobody wanted to be the person who failed in front of Natalie Brooks. Natalie was 46, sharp-faced, perfectly dressed, and feared by half the staff. She wore a cream blazer, pearl earrings, and the kind of smile that disappeared the moment someone without a title entered the room. To guests, she was polished. To employees, she was a locked door. Then a soft voice came from behind the linen cart. "Mom, I can speak Chinese." Natalie turned. Alicia Monroe stood near the service entrance in a gray housekeeping uniform, holding a stack of fresh towels against her chest. She was 29 years old, slim, quiet, with warm brown skin and tired eyes that had learned to lower themselves before trouble arrived. Her hair was pulled back neatly. A cheap green glass bracelet rested on her wrist. For 1 second, the hallway went still. Alicia swallowed. "I can help." Natalie stared at her, not with relief, with disgust. "You?" The word landed hard. Alicia kept her voice low. "Yes, Mom. If the investors need someone to interpret, I can try." Natalie stepped closer. Her perfume cut through the hallway like alcohol. "Look at you," she said. "Wrinkled uniform, cleaning cart, spray bottle on your belt, and you think you are going to walk into a billion-dollar negotiation?" Alicia's fingers tightened around the towels. "I only meant that I understand the language." Natalie laughed once. "Cold, small. You understand cleaning bathrooms. That is what you understand." The bellhop looked away. The front desk clerk stopped typing. No one moved. Natalie leaned in, her voice dropping, sharper now. "Do you have any idea who is in that room? Do you know what is at stake? These are not tourists asking for directions to the restroom. These are serious people. Powerful people. They do not need a maid pretending she belongs at the table." Alicia's face changed only slightly. A blink. A breath caught behind her ribs. "I'm not pretending," she said. Natalie's eyes hardened. "Don't get smart with me." The boardroom door opened behind them. Victor Chen stepped out. He was calm, but his calm was the dangerous kind. His jaw was tight. His briefcase was closed. 2 members of his delegation stood behind him, silent and watchful. Natalie spun toward him with a bright, desperate smile. "Mr. Chen, please. We are locating another interpreter right now." Victor did not answer. His eyes moved past Natalie. They stopped on Alicia. For a brief moment, he studied her. Not the uniform, not the cart. Her face, her stillness, her listening. Alicia felt it. She knew he had understood more than Natalie thought. Maybe not every insult, but enough. Tone needed no translation. Natalie saw his gaze and panicked. She snapped back at Alicia. "Get out of here now." Alicia lowered her eyes. "Yes, Mom." She turned toward the service corridor, each step careful, each breath shallow. The towels in her arms felt heavier than they were. Behind her, Victor Chen said something in Chinese. Fast, controlled, final. The room froze. Natalie's smile collapsed. One of the younger Chinese executives translated under his breath for his colleague, but Alicia heard every word clearly. He said they were leaving. The deal was over. Natalie's face went pale. No, Mr. Chen, please, she said, rushing after him. There has been a misunderstanding. Victor walked toward the elevator. Alicia stopped beside the service door. Her hand touched the green bracelet on her wrist. Her grandmother's bracelet, cheap glass. Not jade, but hers. She could still hear Grace Monroe's voice from years ago, soft over a kitchen table in Southside Chicago. Language is the one thing nobody can take from you, baby. Alicia closed her eyes for half a second. Then she opened them, and for the first time that day, she did not lower her head. She turned away from the service corridor and stepped toward the man everyone else had failed to hear. But before Alicia reached him, Natalie cut across the marble like a blade. Not one more step, her voice was low now. Not loud, worse than loud. The kind of voice people use when they believe the walls belong to them. Alicia stopped. Victor Chen stood near the elevator with his briefcase in one hand. His delegation waited behind him. A security officer by the lobby column shifted his weight, unsure whether this was a guest issue or an executive issue. No one wanted to choose wrong. Natalie smiled at Victor, then turned that smile into something cold for Alicia. Mr. Chen does not require assistance from housekeeping. Alicia looked at Victor, then at Natalie. With respect, Mom, I heard what he said. Natalie's face tightened. You heard nothing. Alicia's voice stayed soft. He said the discussion has lost integrity. He said his concerns were not translated honestly. He said he cannot recommend moving forward under those conditions. The young delegate closest to Victor looked up fast. His eyes widened. Victor's hand tightened around the briefcase handle. Natalie felt the shift before she understood it. The air changed. The hallway changed. The little woman in the wrinkled uniform was no longer invisible, and Natalie hated that more than she feared the lost deal. She stepped closer to Alicia. Where did you learn that sentence? Alicia did not answer right away. She could feel every pair of eyes on her. The front desk clerk, the bellhop, the assistant manager standing half-hidden behind a floral arrangement. People who had passed her for years without learning her last name. Finally, she said, I learned the language. Natalie gave a short laugh, but it came out thin. From where? An app? Alicia's cheeks warmed, but she did not look down. From books, libraries, audio lessons, conversations, a lot of years. Victor said something quietly in Chinese. Alicia turned to him and answered before anyone else moved. Yes, sir, I understand you. The words were clean, calm, not perfect in the polished way of a university lecturer. Better than that. Lived in, practiced, patient. The sound of someone who had earned every syllable alone. The younger delegate breathed out through his nose, almost a laugh of disbelief. Natalie went still. For one dangerous second, Alicia thought Natalie might slap her. Not because Natalie was brave, but because humiliation makes some people reckless. Instead, Natalie grabbed Alicia by the elbow, hard. Alicia winced. You are coming with me. Victor's eyes dropped to Natalie's hand. Remove your hand from her arm, he said in English. His accent was clear, his meaning clearer. Natalie froze. Then she released Alicia slowly, finger by finger. I apologize, Mr. Chen. This employee is confused. We will handle this internally. Victor looked past Natalie again. What is your name? Alicia felt the question hit her harder than the insult. Her name. Not girl, not maid, not housekeeping. Alicia Monroe, sir. He nodded once. Miss Monroe. Did you hear the earlier discussion in the service corridor? Natalie's head snapped toward her. Alicia knew the honest answer could cost her job. Maybe her rent. Maybe the health insurance she used for asthma medication she could barely afford. She pictured her locker upstairs. Her thermos, her old notebook, her grandmother's bracelet flashing green under fluorescent light. Then she told the truth. Yes, sir, parts of it. And did my interpreter translate my concern correctly? The hallway seemed to shrink. Natalie whispered, Alicia, be very careful. Alicia looked at her. Then she looked at Victor. No, sir. 2 words. Small words. but they struck the marble like a dropped glass. The younger delegate shut his eyes for a moment, as if someone had finally opened a window in a room without air. Victor did not move. Natalie did. She spun toward Alicia with fury breaking through her makeup. "You have no authority to make that statement." Alicia's voice trembled, but only at the edge. "I have no title. That is not the same thing." The bellhop finally looked up. The assistant manager swallowed. Natalie's mouth opened, then closed. Victor stepped closer. "What was I asking?" Alicia's heart pounded so hard she could hear it behind her ears. She knew there was no walking back now. "You were asking who would control major operating decisions after acquisition. You were concerned that the translated version removed shared oversight and created a full transfer of authority. You said your board would never approve a structure that made your company responsible for the investment, but powerless over the outcome." The younger delegate whispered something to Victor. Victor did not answer him. He only stared at Alicia. Really stared. The elevator behind him opened with a soft bell. Empty. No one stepped inside. Natalie's phone buzzed in her hand. She ignored it. Her breathing had gone shallow. Alicia stood in the middle of that polished hallway in cheap shoes, with a cleaning cloth tucked into her apron. She had never looked less powerful. And yet, for the first time all day, the most powerful man in the building was listening only to her. Victor lowered his briefcase. Not to the floor, just a few inches. Enough for everyone to see the deal was not dead yet. Then he said, in English, "Find your general manager now." Daniel Whitaker was not in his office when the call came through. He was in the back service hallway, standing beside a broken ice machine, listening to an engineer explain why a repair that should have taken 1 hour had now taken 3. Daniel had a rolled-up shirt sleeve, a loosened tie, and a coffee he had not touched since morning. His phone rang. Natalie Brooks. He almost let it go to voicemail. Then he saw the second call come in from the boardroom line. Daniel answered. Natalie spoke first, fast and breathless. "Daniel, we have a situation. Mr. Chen is upset. He wants you." Immediately, Daniel closed his eyes. Upset how? There was a pause. Too long. Danielle heard voices behind her. Low. Tense. Then a woman's voice. Alicia's voice. Steady, but strained. Natalie came back on the line. "Just come down." Daniel was already moving before she finished. He walked fast through the service corridor, past stacked banquet chairs, past carts of silverware wrapped in white cloth, past 2 dishwashers who stopped talking as he passed. The hotel had a language of its own. Silence meant trouble. Staff looking away meant bigger trouble. By the time Daniel reached the marble hallway outside the boardroom, he saw the whole picture. Victor Chen stood near the elevator with his delegation behind him. Natalie stood between Victor and Alicia, like a gate trying to hold back a storm. Alicia was still in uniform, still holding herself carefully, but something about her had changed. Her shoulders were not folded inward anymore. Daniel slowed. "Mr. Chen," he said, "I'm Daniel Whitaker, general manager." Victor did not offer his hand. "Your interpreter failed today," he said. Daniel looked at Natalie. Natalie lifted her chin. "We were already addressing that." Victor continued. "Your employee understood what I said. Your appointed interpreter did not." Daniel's eyes moved to Alicia. Alicia Monroe, housekeeping. He knew the name because he made it his business to know names. Not every name. Not enough. But more than most managers in buildings like this. He remembered she worked floors 12 through 15. Quiet. Never late. Rarely complained. He did not know she spoke Chinese. "That fact landed in him with shame, Alicia," he said gently. "Is that true?" Natalie cut in. "Daniel, she is not qualified to be part of this conversation." Daniel did not raise his voice. "Natalie, stop." The word was calm. Final, her mouth closed. Daniel turned back to Alicia. "Tell me exactly what happened." Alicia glanced at Victor, then at Daniel. She understood the danger. A woman in her position could lose everything by telling the truth in front of people who preferred comfort. Still, she spoke. This morning, during the walkthrough, Mr. Chen raised concerns about the governance clause. The interpreter softened it. He made it sound like a scheduling question. Later, in the lobby, I heard members of the delegation say the same thing. They believed the contract gave them financial responsibility without operational control. Daniel's face tightened. That was not in the summary I received. No, sir, Alicia said. It would not have been. Natalie gave a sharp breath. This is absurd. Victor looked at her. No, this is the first clear explanation I have heard all day. The hallway went still again. Daniel felt the ground shifting under the deal, under the hotel, under every assumption in the room. He could already see the headlines if it failed. Ownership would blame the market. Legal would blame language. Natalie would blame a vendor. And a housekeeper with the answer would go back upstairs and clean rooms. Not this time. Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. Get me legal in boardroom 1, he said to his assistant. Now. And revoke the interpreter's access badge until further review. Natalie's eyes widened. Daniel. He turned to her. Not another word. Alicia looked down at the floor for the first time since he arrived. Not from shame, from the shock of being defended. Victor watched Daniel closely. You trust her? He asked. Daniel looked at Alicia, the green bracelet on her wrist, the worn cuff of her uniform, the careful way she had placed herself near the edge of the hallway, as if years of habit still told her not to take space. Then he said, I trust what can be verified. He opened the boardroom door and stepped inside. The air was cold. Papers sat across the mahogany table. A projector still showed the acquisition structure on the screen. Daniel picked up a printed term sheet from the table and carried it back into the hallway. He handed it to Alicia. Read this paragraph. Natalie looked horrified. You cannot be serious. Daniel ignored her. Alicia took the page. Her hands shook once, then steadied. She read the Chinese paragraph silently. Her eyes moved line by line. Her breathing slowed. Then she translated. Not word for word like a machine. Meaning for meaning. Precise, legal, controlled. Daniel felt the back of his neck go cold. Victor's expression changed. The younger delegate whispered, She is correct. Alicia lowered the paper. For a moment, no one spoke. The elevator doors opened again behind Victor. Still no one entered. Daniel looked at Alicia, and the question before him became painfully simple. Would he protect the system that had overlooked her or the truth she had carried alone? He made his choice. Ms. Monroe, he said, come with me. Alicia blinked. Sir? Daniel held the boardroom door open. We have a meeting to save. Alicia stepped into the boardroom, and every conversation died at once. The room was built to impress men who were used to being impressed. Dark mahogany table, floor-to-ceiling windows. The Chicago skyline washed in late afternoon light. Crystal water glasses placed exactly 2 inches from leather folders. 12 chairs. 12 names printed on tent cards. Not one of those names belonged to Alicia Monroe. She felt that before anyone said it. Natalie entered behind Daniel, her face tight, her heels striking the floor too hard. She wanted everyone to see that Alicia was still beneath her, still under control, still a mistake that would be corrected after the important people left. But Daniel did not stand at the head of the table. He stood beside Alicia. That small detail landed heavily. Philip Grant, a silver-haired member of the ownership group, looked over his glasses. Daniel, what is this? Daniel kept his voice even. This is Ms. Alicia Monroe. She will assist us with translation until we resolve the issue. Natalie laughed under her breath. Assist? Daniel, she cleans the 14th floor. One of the hotel attorneys shifted in his chair. Another looked down at his legal pad. No one wanted to touch the words Natalie had just dropped into the room. Victor Chen placed his briefcase on the table. Then perhaps, he said, the 14th floor is where you should have been looking all morning. Silence. Sharp. Clean. Undeniable. Alicia's hand moved to her bracelet. She stopped herself before touching it. Daniel pulled out a chair for her. Please sit. Alicia looked at the chair like it might disappear if she believed in it too quickly. In all her years at the Langford Grand, she had entered rooms like this only after the powerful people left. To collect coffee cups. To wipe fingerprints from glass. To empty trash full of drafts and numbers and signatures that shaped other people's lives. Never to sit. Natalie saw her hesitation and seized it. She is not prepared for this environment. Alicia turned her head slowly. Not angry. Clear. I have been preparing for this environment for years, Ms. Brooks. Just not in rooms where you could see me. The words hit harder because they were not loud. Philip Grant looked up fully now. Victor sat down first. His team followed. Daniel sat beside Alicia. Natalie remained standing for 1 second too long, then took her chair with a stiff, controlled motion. Daniel opened the meeting. We need to identify the exact discrepancy in the governance clause. Ms. Monroe will translate directly. No summaries, no softening, no substitutions. Alicia heard the instruction behind the instruction. Tell the truth. Victor began speaking in Chinese. His voice was steady but firm. He explained that his firm was not opposed to shared oversight. It was opposed to being asked to invest nearly $1 billion while losing real decision-making power after closing. Alicia translated. Cleanly, accurately, without adding heat and without removing it. The attorneys looked at each other. The hotel side had heard this concern before, but never this plainly. Never with the bone still inside the words. One attorney, Mark Feldman, leaned forward. That is not what the English draft says. Alicia turned to Victor's team and translated Mark's sentence. Victor responded at once. Then show me why your interpreter told us the opposite. Alicia translated that too. Mark swallowed. Daniel looked toward the printed copies. Let's compare the language. Pages opened. Pens clicked. Chairs creaked. The room shifted from performance to work. For the first time all day, people stopped defending themselves and started listening. Alicia read the English clause, then the Chinese rendering. Then she explained the difference. Collaborative oversight meant shared review authority. But the phrase communicated earlier suggested final operational transfer. Shared governance had become surrender. Partnership had become control. The mistake was not small. It was the deal. Natalie's face had gone pale. That is impossible, she said. Our interpreter was certified. Victor looked at her. Certification did not hear me. Alicia translated it quietly. No one spoke. Then Daniel asked the question everyone was avoiding. Ms. Monroe, in your professional opinion, can this be repaired today? Natalie snapped. She does not have a professional opinion. Daniel's eyes did not leave Alicia. Alicia felt the room waiting for her to shrink. Old habit told her to step back. Her grandmother's voice told her not to. She sat straighter. Yes, she said. It can be repaired today, but only if both sides agree to stop protecting pride and start protecting meaning. The words settled over the table. Even Victor blinked. Daniel leaned back, studying her with something new in his eyes. Not surprise anymore. Recognition. Because Alicia had not only translated the problem, she had named the disease, pride, that quiet force that lets powerful people ignore truth when truth arrives in the wrong uniform. Victor closed his folder. Then let us continue, he said. Alicia translated, and this time, everyone listened. The meeting did not calm down. It sharpened. Once the real issue was exposed, every person at that table understood how close they had come to disaster. Not a public disagreement. Not a minor misunderstanding. A billion-dollar failure caused by words bent just enough to break trust. Mark Feldman spread both versions of the clause across the table. Here, he said, tapping the English draft. Shared oversight. Joint approval on capital expenditures. Joint approval on senior operational changes. That is what we intended. Alicia translated. Victor listened without blinking. Then he responded in Chinese, slower this time, choosing each phrase with care. Alicia turned to the hotel team. He says intention does not protect an investor after signature. Language does. If the signed version gives power away, no speech in this room can bring it back. Philip Grant put down his pen. That is fair. Natalie looked at him, stunned. Philip had barely spoken all day. He was the man ownership sent when they wanted a quiet witness, not a loud participant. But now he leaned forward, both hands folded. He looked at Alicia. Can you draft a corrected concept in plain English? Not legal text, just the meaning. Natalie's lips parted. Philip. He did not look at her. I asked Miss Monroe. The room tightened again. Alicia felt the old fear rise. She had cleaned rooms for guests like Philip Grant. Men who spoke softly because they had never needed to shout. Men whose pens could move people in and out of jobs. A part of her still expected someone to laugh. No one laughed. Daniel slid a legal pad toward her. Alicia took the pen. Her fingers paused over the paper. The whole room watched. Then she wrote, "Shared oversight means both parties must approve major decisions after acquisition. Neither party may transfer operational control without written consent from the other. Financial responsibility and decision-making authority must remain aligned." She looked up. "That is the meaning." Mark Feldman read it. His eyebrows lifted slightly. "That is actually clean." Victor asked for it in Chinese. Alicia translated her own words. This time there was no hesitation, no searching, no fear in the rhythm. The language came through her like water through a gate finally opened. Victor's expression shifted. Not warmth. Not yet. But respect had entered the room, and respect changes the temperature of everything. Natalie felt it. She saw executives who had ignored Alicia 10 minutes earlier now, watching her hand move across the page like it mattered. She saw Victor's delegation taking notes from the words of a housekeeper. She saw Daniel standing behind Alicia's chair, not hovering, not rescuing, simply giving the room a clear message. "This woman belongs here." Natalie's face hardened. "I need to raise a concern," she said. Daniel turned slowly. Natalie folded her hands on the table. Her voice was careful now, professional, rehearsed. "I understand everyone is impressed by this moment, but from a compliance standpoint, we cannot allow an hourly housekeeping employee with no formal clearance to influence transaction language." There it was. Not open contempt, the polished version. The kind that wore a suit and called itself procedure. Alicia looked down at the legal pad. For half a second, the room blurred. She remembered a library table under flickering lights. Her hands cold because the heat had gone out. A borrowed grammar book open beside a cracked phone. She remembered her grandmother coming home from cleaning offices, feet swollen, still asking her to read one French sentence aloud before bed. "Say it again, baby." Language is muscle. Use it or lose it. Daniel was about to respond, but Alicia spoke first. "Ms. Brooks is right about one thing." Everyone looked at her. "I am hourly. I am in housekeeping. I do not have a law degree. I do not have a title that makes people turn their chairs when I walk in." Her voice was quiet, steady. "But the problem in this room is not that I have too little authority. The problem is that the people with authority stopped listening to meaning." No one moved. Alicia continued. "I am not changing the contract. Legal will do that. I am not making business decisions. Ownership will do that. I am only making sure the words say what both sides actually mean. That should not be dangerous." Victor's younger delegate nodded once. Margaret Ellis stood just outside the glass wall, watching through the narrow opening in the door. She had followed at a distance, too worried to stay away. Her hand covered her mouth. Daniel looked at Natalie. "That answers compliance." Natalie's jaw tightened. "Barely." Victor leaned back. "Ms. Monroe," he said in English, "how many languages do you speak?" Alicia hesitated. The question felt too personal in that room. "4 well," she said, "a little of 2 others." The silence that followed was different from every silence before it. Not shock, recognition mixed with shame. Philip Grant removed his glasses. "And we had you cleaning linens." Alicia looked at him. "No, sir," she said gently. "You had me working. There is dignity in that. The mistake was assuming work tells you the limit of a person." Philip lowered his eyes. For the first time that day, Natalie had nothing ready. Then Victor opened his folder again and placed both hands flat on the table. "Continue," he said, and Alicia did. But now, every word she spoke carried more than translation. It carried evidence of talent missed, of pride exposed, of a door that had been locked for years, finally opening from the inside. By the time legal finished marking the clause, the sun had dropped behind the skyline. The boardroom lights reflected in the windows now, turning the glass into a dark mirror. Alicia could see herself in it. Gray uniform, tight shoulders, a pen in one hand, a world of polished suits behind her. She almost did not recognize the woman sitting there. The hotel attorneys worked quickly, not because they suddenly cared about language, but because the room had finally made it impossible not to. Mark Feldman rewrote the governance section in plain English first. Then Alicia rendered the meaning into Chinese line by line, while Victor's legal counsel checked every phrase. No one rushed her. That was new. No one talked over her. That was newer. When Mark used a phrase that sounded harmless in English, but carried a hard edge in Chinese, Alicia stopped him. I would not use that. Mark looked up. Why? Because it sounds like you are granting permission to a subordinate, not entering an agreement with a partner. Mark stared at the page. Then he crossed it out. Good catch. 2 small words. Alicia felt them in her chest. Natalie heard them too. Her hand tightened around her pen until the tip snapped. Blue ink dotted her fingers. She stared at the stain like it had insulted her. Across the table, Victor noticed everything. He noticed how Alicia lowered her voice as tension rose. He noticed how she kept both sides from losing face without hiding the truth. He noticed how she explained not only words, but pressure. Not only phrases, but pride. That was rare. Money could hire interpreters. Money could hire attorneys. Money could hire experts with framed degrees and clean resumes. But it could not always buy judgment. And Alicia Monroe had judgment. After nearly an hour, Victor's counsel leaned toward him and spoke quietly. Alicia waited. Daniel waited. The room seemed to hold its breath. Victor read the revised clause once, then again. He placed the paper on the table. This is acceptable. The words were simple. The effect was not. Daniel exhaled slowly. Philip Grant closed his eyes for half a second. Mark Feldman leaned back as though his spine had finally remembered the chair beneath him. One of Victor's delegates took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Natalie smiled too late. That is wonderful news, Mr. Chen. We are so pleased we could resolve this. Victor turned his head toward her. We did not resolve it, Ms. Brooks. Her smile froze. She did. He looked at Alicia. No one moved. Alicia felt heat rise behind her eyes, but she held it back. She had learned a long time ago that crying in front of people with power could become another thing they used to make you small. Daniel saw the restraint. It hurt him more than he expected. Victor stood. Everyone else began to stand, but he lifted one hand. Not yet. He looked at Daniel. I want a private conversation. You, Ms. Monroe, and one member of my legal team. Natalie stood anyway. I should be present for any guest relations matter. Victor's gazes moved to her with perfect calm. This is no longer a guest relations matter. The words ended it. Daniel nodded to the room. Give us a few minutes. Chairs moved. Papers gathered. Executives filed out one by one, each stealing a look at Alicia as they passed. Some with curiosity, some with embarrassment, some with the discomfort of people who had discovered their building had been hiding brilliance in plain sight. Philip Grant paused beside her. Ms. Monroe, he said. Alicia looked up. He seemed to search for a proper sentence and found only an honest one. I am sorry we did not know, Alicia answered softly. Most people do not ask. Philip nodded once, wounded by the truth of it, and left. Natalie was last. She stopped at the door and turned back. For a moment, her face showed something raw, not regret, fear. Alicia saw it clearly. Natalie was not afraid of losing the deal now. She was afraid of what Alicia's competence said about her own cruelty. Daniel did not let the moment stretch. Natalie outside. She left. The door closed. The room became quiet in a different way. Victor sat again, but this time he did not sit like a man protecting himself. He sat like a man ready to speak plainly. Ms. Monroe, he said, I have negotiated across 3 continents. I have watched rooms full of important people fail because they cared more about winning than understanding. Alicia translated for his counsel by habit, then stopped, realizing everyone present understood enough English. Victor almost smiled. You see, even now you are making sure no one is left outside the meaning. Alicia looked down. It is just habit, sir. No, Victor said. It is discipline. Daniel glanced at her. He had heard praise given to executives who deserved half of it. He had never seen it land on someone who needed time to believe it. Victor folded his hands. The deal may continue. But I have one condition. Daniel's posture sharpened. Of course. Victor looked directly at Alicia. She remains involved in all communication between my team and yours. Every call, every meeting, every written summary. No exception. Alicia's breath caught. Daniel did not hesitate. Agreed. Victor leaned back, and her title must match the responsibility. The room went still. Alicia finally looked up. For years, she had worn a name tag people did not read. Now a billionaire investor was telling a general manager, that her name needed a title big enough to carry what she had already proven. Daniel nodded slowly. It will. Victor picked up the revised clause and tapped it once. Then we have a deal to finish. The signing did not happen that night. No serious deal of that size ever did. There were lawyers to review language, finance teams to confirm numbers, board approvals to schedule, and compliance officers who would spend the next week pretending they had not almost missed the most important problem in the room. But something more important than a signature happened before anyone left. Trust returned. It returned slowly at first. In the way Victor Chen uncapped his pen again. In the way his legal counsel stopped whispering through closed teeth and began asking direct questions. In the way Daniel Whitaker took notes without defending the hotel at every turn. And in the way Alicia Monroe no longer sat at the edge of the table. She sat in the work. For nearly another hour, she helped both sides rebuild the conversation from the ground up. Not the contract yet. The understanding beneath it. When Victor used a proverb about a bridge being strong only when both banks hold firm, Alicia paused. She could have translated it literally. She did not. She looked at the hotel team and said, "He means partnership cannot survive if one side carries all the risk and the other holds all the power." Victor looked at her. Then he gave one slow nod. "Correct." Mark Feldman wrote it down. Philip Grant underlined it. Daniel watched the room change around her and felt something heavy move inside him. He had worked in hotels for 30 years. He knew service workers could read people better than executives could. He knew housekeepers heard the truth in rooms after the door closed. He knew bellhops could spot trouble before security did. But knowing that in theory was not the same as acting on it. Tonight made that difference plain. When the private session ended, Daniel opened the boardroom doors. The hallway outside was full. Not crowded in an obvious way. Hotel staff knew how to look busy, but they were there. Bellhops near the luggage stand. Front desk clerks pretending to check screens. Banquet servers holding empty trays. Margaret Ellis standing near the corner with both hands clasped tight in front of her. And Natalie Brooks. She stood apart from everyone else, still, pale. Watching, stepped-faced delegation followed. Then Daniel, then Alicia. The hallway grew quiet. Alicia hated that kind of quiet. She knew it from childhood, from school offices, from grocery stores, from places where people watched to see whether you belonged. But this silence was different. This time, people were not waiting for her to be removed. They were waiting to know what she had done. Daniel turned to face the staff, and executives gathered there. His voice carried across the marble without effort. The acquisition discussions will continue. A breath moved through the hallway. Relief. Shock. A few whispered thank yous. Daniel raised his hand slightly. And I want something clearly understood. The reason they will continue is because Miss Alicia Monroe identified a critical language failure, explained it accurately, and helped both sides restore trust. No one spoke. Alicia felt the floor tilt under her. Daniel continued. Our system nearly missed her. That failure belongs to the system, not to her. Margaret's eyes filled immediately. The young bellhop near the elevator looked down, ashamed. Earlier, he had looked away when Natalie humiliated Alicia. Now he could not look away from the result. Victor turned toward Alicia. In front of everyone, he lowered his head in a small bow. Not dramatic, not theatrical. A controlled gesture of respect from a man who did not waste gestures. Alicia's lips parted. For a second, she forgot to breathe. Then Victor spoke in Chinese. Alicia translated it herself, her voice softer than before. Mr. Chen says he looks forward to working with Miss Monroe as the cultural and linguistic liaison for this transition. The words moved through the hallway like a bell. Cultural and linguistic liaison. Not maid, not girl, not housekeeping. Alicia Monroe. Natalie flinched as if the title had struck her. Margaret stepped forward first. She did not clap. That would have made the moment too small. She simply took Alicia's hand in both of hers and squeezed. I knew there was more to you, she whispered. Alicia's throat tightened. You asked? Margaret shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. No, honey, I finally asked. That was when Philip Grant came out of the boardroom. He walked straight to Alicia, reached into his jacket, and placed a business card in her hand. "Call me Monday," he said. Alicia looked at the card, heavy paper, embossed letters, a door made small enough to hold. She nodded. "Thank you, sir." Natalie stepped forward then, forcing a smile so thin it barely held. "Alicia," she said, "I think we should speak privately about how to handle this transition." Daniel turned to her. "No." The words stopped her cold. He looked at Natalie in front of everyone she had once controlled with a glance. "You and I will speak privately now." The hallway went still again. Natalie's smile vanished. For the first time all day, she looked exactly like what she was. Not powerful. Exposed. Daniel gestured toward his office. Natalie walked ahead of him, heels clicking against the marble. Click, click, click. The same sound that had started the panic. Only now it sounded smaller with every step. Daniel's office door closed with a quiet click, but the sound carried through the hallway like a gavel. No one heard what he said to Natalie. They did not need to. Through the frosted glass, Alicia could see shapes only. Daniel standing, Natalie seated, his posture still, hers rigid. At one point, Natalie lifted one hand as if arguing. Daniel did not move, then her hand lowered. Alicia turned away. She did not want to watch another person fall. That surprised her. After what Natalie had said, after the way she had grabbed her arm, after years of small cuts disguised as management, Alicia thought she might feel satisfaction. She did not. She felt tired. The kind of tired that comes after surviving something you never should have had to survive. Margaret noticed. She guided Alicia toward a quiet alcove near the guest elevators. "Sit down for a minute, honey." Alicia almost said she was fine. It was a reflex. Working people said fine when their backs hurt, fine when the rent was late, fine when someone humiliated them, and they still had 6 rooms left to clean. But Margaret's face would not accept the lie, so Alicia sat. Her knees trembled as soon as they bent. Margaret handed her a paper cup of water. Alicia took it with both hands. "I keep thinking I should go clock out," Alicia whispered. Margaret gave a soft, broken laugh. After saving a billion-dollar deal? Alicia looked at the cup. Water shook in small circles. "I still have rooms on 15. Margaret's smile faded. That sentence did something to her. It carried the whole shape of the problem. A woman could walk into a boardroom, rebuild trust between international executives, and still worry that someone would write her up for unfinished towels. Margaret sat beside her. "Alicia, listen to me. The rooms can wait." Alicia shook her head slowly. People always say that when it is not their job on the line. Margaret had no quick answer, because Alicia was right. Across the lobby, the young bellhop who had looked away earlier stood frozen beside a luggage cart. His name was Kevin Miller, 23 years old, first year in hospitality. He kept replaying the moment Natalie humiliated Alicia. The way Alicia's head tightened. The way his own feet had stayed locked to the floor. He walked over, stopped a few feet away, and swallowed. "Ms. Monroe?" Alicia looked up. Kevin's cheeks were red. "I should have said something earlier." The words came out rough. "I heard what she said. I saw her grab you, and I just stood there." Alicia studied him for a moment. Kevin expected anger. Maybe he deserved it. Instead, she said, "Next time, say something." "I will." "No," Alicia said, not unkindly. "Do not say it because you feel guilty tonight. Say it because one day, someone smaller than you will need the room to know they are not alone." Kevin's eyes dropped. "Yes, Mom." That mom sounded different from all the others. Not habit, respect. The office door opened. Natalie came out first. Her face was composed, but the skin around her eyes looked raw. She did not look at Alicia. She did not look at anyone. She walked straight past the front desk, past the flowers, past the luggage stand, her heels clicking fast against the marble. Daniel followed a moment later. He looked older than he had an hour before. Alicia stood. Daniel held up one hand gently. "Please, stay seated if you need to." That small permission nearly undid her. He walked closer. "Ms. Monroe, I owe you an apology." Alicia's throat tightened. "Sir, you do not have to. I do." He looked around the lobby, making sure the people nearby could hear him. Not because he wanted theater, but because private respect could not repair public harm. What happened today was unacceptable. Not only the translation failure, the way you were treated, The way your ability went unseen. The way our systems made it possible for a talented employee to be ignored until a crisis forced us to notice her. He paused. That is on leadership. That is on me. Alicia looked at him, and for the first time she saw not a boss trying to manage fallout, but a man willing to stand inside blame without passing it downward. Daniel continued. Effective immediately, you are relieved of housekeeping duties with full pay, while we create the transition role Mr. Chen requested. Human resources will document it properly. Legal will review compensation. You will have representation in that process if you want it. Alicia blinked. Full pay? Full pay, Daniel said. And back pay review for any language-related work you have already performed for guests without recognition. Margaret covered her mouth again. Alicia's fingers went to her bracelet. Grace Monroe had worn those same beads while scrubbing office floors downtown. She had taught a little girl that knowledge could be shelter. That language could become a key. But she had not lived long enough to see the door open. Alicia looked down at the green glass beads. They caught the lobby light. Cheap, scratched, beautiful. Daniel's voice softened. There is one more thing. Alicia looked up. The French guest in suite 1408 asked for you by name. He wanted to thank the person who wrote the note about his allergies. Margaret told me. Alicia turned to Margaret. Margaret shrugged through tears. I thought someone should finally know. For a moment, Alicia could not speak. The lobby around her blurred. Not from weakness, from release. All day, people had asked what she was doing in rooms where she did not belong. Now, one by one, the rooms were answering. She had belonged there all along. By Monday morning, the Langford Grand felt like the same hotel from the outside. The revolving doors kept turning. The bell carts rolled across the lobby. Guests complained about room temperature, asked for late checkout, and smiled at staff members they would forget before reaching the airport. But inside the building, something had shifted. People lowered their voices when Alicia Monroe walked past. Not because they feared her, because they remembered. She arrived at 7:15 in the morning, wearing the same gray uniform. She had ironed it before dawn out of habit, pressing the collar flat at her kitchen table, while her coffee cooled beside her. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Victor Chen lowering his head, Daniel opening the boardroom door, Natalie's hand on her arm. Her phone had buzzed all weekend. Not from friends. Alicia did not have many, mostly from numbers she did not recognize. Human resources. Daniel's assistant, legal, Margaret, and one message from Kevin the bellhop. I spoke up today when a guest yelled at Maria in valet. I thought you should know. Alicia read that 3 times. Now, as she stepped into the employee entrance, the security guard looked up from his desk. Morning, Ms. Monroe. He had called her Alicia for years. When he called her anything at all, she stopped for half a second. Morning, Mr. Reed. He sat a little straighter. In the locker room, 2 housekeepers stopped talking when she entered. Maria Vasquez, who had 3 children and the fastest hands on the 15th floor, turned first. Girl, is it true? Alicia opened her lock slowly. Depends what you heard. Maria lowered her voice. They said you saved the deal. They said some billionaire asked for you by name. They said Natalie got moved out of the main office. Alicia folded her coat and placed it inside. The deal is still under review, she said. And Mr. Chen asked that I assist with communication. Assist? Maria gave her a look. Honey, that is what people say when they do not want to admit they need you. A few women laughed softly, not mocking, warm. Then Evelyn Carter, the oldest housekeeper on the team, stepped forward. She was 64, with silver hair tucked under a scarf and knees that clicked on stairs. She had worked hotels since before Alicia was born. She took Alicia's hand. You did good, baby. Alicia felt her throat tighten. Evelyn squeezed once. But do not let them turn your gift into another mop. You hear me? If they need your mind, they need to pay for your mind. The room went quiet. Alicia nodded. Yes, Mom. At 8:30, Daniel's assistant came downstairs to get her. Not through the service hallway, through the lobby. That was Daniel's instruction. Alicia walked beside the assistant past the front desk, past the marble columns, past the place where Natalie had told her to get out of sight. Every step echoed differently now. Click from the assistant's heels. Soft squeak from Alicia's repaired shoes. Click, squeak, click, squeak. Margaret stood behind the front desk and watched. She did not wave. She only smiled, the kind of smile that carries years inside it. Upstairs, Human Resources had prepared a conference room. Daniel was there. Philip Grant was there by video call. Mark Feldman from Legal sat with a yellow pad. A woman from HR named Sandra Lee had a folder in front of her, thick with forms. Alicia sat down. Sandra smiled professionally. Ms. Monroe, first, congratulations. We are creating an interim position for you during the transition period. Cultural and Linguistic Liaison. The starting salary will be adjusted from your current hourly rate. To Alicia raised one hand. Everyone stopped. She felt her pulse in her fingertips. I would like to understand the full scope of responsibilities before discussing pay. Sandra blinked. Of course. Alicia opened the small notebook she had carried for years. The rubber band was stretched loose now. The cover was soft at the corners from being held too often by hands that needed something steady. She turned to a blank page. Will I be translating live meetings? Daniel said yes. Written summaries? Yes. Cross-cultural advisory? Yes. Contract review support? Mark cleared his throat. Language support, not legal advice. Alicia nodded and wrote that down. Availability outside business hours? Daniel looked at Sandra. Likely, during closing week. Alicia wrote that too. Then she looked up. Then this is not an assistant role. It is a specialist role. The room stilled. Philip Grant's face on the screen did not change, but his eyes sharpened. Alicia continued. I am grateful for the opportunity. Truly. But gratitude is not compensation. If the hotel wants me to carry professional responsibility, the role should be classified professionally, paid professionally, and protected professionally. No one spoke. This was the second time the room had expected her to be thankful enough to be quiet. She was thankful. She was not quiet. Daniel leaned back and slowly, almost invisibly, smiled. You are right. Sandra looked down at the folder, then back up. We can revise the classification. Mark nodded. We should. Alicia let out a breath she had not known she was holding. Outside the conference room window, the city moved under gray morning light. Trains crossed bridges. Office workers hurried below. Somewhere in that city, people were putting on uniforms the world would mistake for limits. Alicia looked at her notebook. For years, it had been proof she was building something no one could see. Now it was something else. Leverage. Voice. A doorstop. And this time, when the door opened, she was ready to walk through it on her own terms. 2 weeks later, the Langford Grand announced the acquisition in a quiet press release. No fireworks. No champagne tower. No staged photo with smiling executives pretending the deal had been easy. Just a clean statement. The Chen Pacific Group would move forward with the purchase. The transition would begin immediately. The hotel would retain key staff. Governance terms had been revised to reflect equal oversight and shared operational authority. Buried near the bottom was one line that mattered more to Alicia than the headline. Alicia Monroe has been appointed Cultural and Linguistic Liaison for the transition team. She read it 3 times on her phone before work. Then she set the phone down on her kitchen table and cried. Not loudly. Not the kind of crying that breaks a room open. Just quiet tears falling onto the same table where she had studied after double shifts, copied Chinese characters until her hand cramped, and whispered French sentences to an empty apartment so she could hear if they sounded right. Her grandmother's bracelet sat on her wrist, green glass, still cheap, still priceless. At the hotel, justice arrived the way it usually does in real life. Not with shouting, not with a crowd, with paperwork. Natalie Brooks was removed from guest relations after an internal review. The report named the failed oversight, the treatment of staff, and the obstruction that nearly cost the ownership group its largest transaction in decades. She was offered a lower administrative role at a regional office outside the city. She took it. On her last morning, she came through the lobby carrying a cardboard box. No pearl earrings. No sharp cream blazer. Just a gray coat, bare face, and eyes that avoided every person she used to command. Alicia was crossing from the elevator bank with a leather folder under her arm. Her new badge clipped to her jacket. Not a uniform now, a navy blazer, simple, professional, hers. They stopped in the middle of the lobby. For a moment, the old fear moved through Alicia's body. Then it passed. Natalie looked at the badge. Alicia Monroe, Cultural and Linguistic Liaison. Her mouth tightened. Alicia could have said many things. She could have reminded Natalie of the hallway, the insult, the hand on her arm, the way she had tried to make Alicia disappear. Instead, Alicia said, "I hope you learn from this." Natalie looked up. No sarcasm, no cruelty, no victory in Alicia's voice. That made it harder to answer. Natalie opened her mouth, but nothing else came out. She adjusted the box in her arms and walked toward the revolving doors. Her heels did not click with power now. They sounded uncertain, smaller with every step. Alicia watched her go. She did not need Natalie broken. She only needed the door to stay open for the next woman. 6 months later, Alicia flew to Shanghai, her first flight outside the United States. Victor Chang's team met her at the airport with a driver holding a sign that said Ms. Monroe. She stood there for a second, staring at those words under the bright terminal lights, remembering every time someone had called her girl, housekeeping, anything but her name. Now her name crossed oceans. She worked 3 months on the transition. She sat in conference rooms on the 42nd floor. She translated strategy sessions. She corrected cultural mistakes before they became conflicts. She taught executives how to hear silence, how to slow down, how to ask what a phrase meant before assuming they already knew. And when she came back to Chicago, she did something no one expected. She declined 2 corporate offers, then a third. Instead, she opened a small consulting firm with the money she had saved, and the contacts Philip Grant helped her build. She named it Grace Monroe Cultural Consulting. The logo was simple, a small green bracelet. Margaret Ellis became Director of Guest Relations at the Langford Grand. On her first day, she changed one policy. Every employee file would include language skills, certifications, outside training, and personal development goals. Housekeeping, valet, kitchen, security, everyone. At the first staff meeting, Margaret stood in front of the room and said, "We do not discover talent by accident anymore. We ask." Alicia kept one thing from the old days, her notebook. She framed the rejection email Natalie had sent years earlier, the one that said she lacked a professional communication background. Beside it, she framed the first business card from her own company, not out of bitterness, as evidence. The biggest danger is not being underestimated. People will do that. The danger is believing them. And somewhere tonight, in a hotel hallway, a grocery line, a bus station, or a nursing home break room, someone is carrying a gift no one has bothered to ask about. Maybe they speak 4 languages. Maybe they fix engines. Maybe they write poems. Maybe they understand people better than any executive in the room. So look again. Ask the question. Learn the name. And if this story reminded you of someone who was overlooked, or if it reminded you of yourself, share it with them. They may need to hear this today, because power is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is wearing old shoes. Sometimes it is holding towels in a marble hallway, waiting for one person to finally listen.